Just imagine spending $1,000 on a keyboard. Not the PC that you want or the iPhone 17 Pro, just a gaming keyboard. And every single key is actually a screen that adapts to what you're doing. Well, that was the idea behind the Optimus Maximus Keyboard, which is one of the most ambitious and controversial keyboards ever. And that was all the way back in 2007. And now, in 2026, there's been a redesigned concept of that called the Flux Keyboard. So the question we're gonna be answering today is, did it fail because it was bad or just that it was too early? So throw back to 2007 when the Optimus Maximus was first introduced. And it didn't actually start as like a product that like consumers could buy. It started as an idea. The idea came from a Russian design studio, and their goal wasn't actually to sell a keyboard. They just came up with the idea, what if every key could change based off what you're doing? So back when this was actually first introduced in 2005, it sounded completely unrealistic. However, once the concept actually got online, people were going bonkers for it. Text blogs were posting about it, a ton of different stuff. Everyone really just wanted this to exist, and so now that concept had demand, and the design studio actually decided, hey, let's partner up and let's meet that demand. So here's how the keyboard actually worked. Every single key had a tiny OLED screen inside of it. So it wasn't on top, it wasn't on bottom where it shines through, it was actually inside the keycap. And because this was happening on a hardware level, whatever people were doing, they could customize their keys to that. Let's say you were gonna do some Photoshop. Your keys could transform into shortcuts and edits and like different fills and stuff. If you wanted to type in Spanish or something else like Russian, then the keyboard could do that too. And people were really bonkers for this idea. They were really crazy for it, and here's why. So on paper, this was actually really insane. The customization was on another level. You could change the entire layout with one clip, and it was just really cool to experience. You didn't really have to memorize any shortcuts like Command B, Command V. It's all just there. This was especially powerful for designers, editors, anyone who really had to do like a heavy workload. So this keyboard, it would just adapt to your needs. But here's why it failed. So the first problem was price. This keyboard was priced between $1,000 and $1,600. And that by itself made it unreachable to most people who were actually like smart. But there were a few deeper issues that were even more serious. Because this wasn't just an expensive keyboard, it was very complex. It had to have its own driver, its own switches, while having its screen inside. So in manufacturing, it wasn't just expensive to produce, but also there would probably be a lot of mess-ups from something like this. And they couldn't have even gone for something cheaper like LCD because that miniature display tech wasn't available to them at the time. So production was slow and it was just really inconsistent. And even with that, another thing that just piles on is that the durability was pretty bad. These keys were extremely fragile, and if one display went out, then it affected the rest of your typing experience. And speaking of typing experience, the typing experience, it wasn't good at all. Because of the displays, the feel wasn't like a normal keyboard. It was really stiff, really brittle, and really hard to click down on. So that would instantly write it off for gamers too, because they need like fast, clicky travel time. And then software was its own little problem, but that's kind of like to the side. It wasn't as big as the other things. However, the brightness and viewing angles were pretty bad because of the OLED miniature technology. So as we fast forward to today, that same idea is coming back, but at a much better, larger scale. This is the Flux Keyboard. So instead of putting a screen into every single key, the keyboard itself is the screen. It's basically one large display underneath the keyboard. So it's basically the same idea, but a completely different approach. So this actually hasn't released yet. It's supposed to come out around August, but here's why it would probably fix some of these problems. There are fewer moving parts, which means the durability is a lot better. It's much simpler to engineer because you don't have to fit like 114 individual screens into keys. And it just looks a lot cleaner. And all the perks are still there. You still get custom layouts, custom switches. You can actually remove the switches, which is actually pretty nice. And it's just all that, and the typing experience is supposed to be a lot better. And on top of that, you can even add some of your own extra attachments like micro dials. However, there are still a couple of questions since this hasn't actually been released yet. Now, it's supposed to be better, but will it really? Because like, it's really hard to tell if a keyboard feels good in your hands until you actually buy one. The second is the software. If the software isn't good and it can't execute its main function, then it's not going to be very good. And the third is trust with the consumers. Because this idea has already failed once, people might be pretty skeptical if it's actually going to happen again. So here's what I think. I think the Optimus Maximus didn't fail because it was bad, but rather just because the technology wasn't available at the time. So now the Flux Keyboard can really see if it can redeem those factors. So what do you think? Would it actually be good to use a keyboard like this? Or are people over-engineering and it's not that complicated to just type? And more importantly, would you even spend that much money on it? And if you want me breaking down more insane tech videos like this, then be sure to subscribe.